demand. It's being requested by many. The thousands and the masses have come out and requested that Dan and John's Hockey Corner return to the After Hours Lounge tonight. So we'll be here at 7:15. Do we? And your mic's not working.
It's not working.
John Bishop wasn't here in studio today.
Yeah,
is it working now?
Nor did Josh Peterson have a co-host. So Mike 3 was not turned up.
There it is. Brian Munson.
I'm a bad producer.
Speaking of Mike 3, Brian Munson will take Mike 3 from us tonight and talk about Trey Taylor, who we're about to get to in a second, the number 3 quarterback in the 2027 class. Picks Nebraska today. Brian Munson is going to tell us how that affects the 2027 recruiting cycle as well. Jimmy Allen, John Schreiner, Dan Campion with you here tonight. Don't forget to follow the show at After Hours 1620 on Twitter. You can get a hold of us at 402-951-1620 to weigh in on anything we're talking about tonight as well. As we mentioned, the aforementioned Trey Taylor picks Nebraska. The 6'3", 185-pound quarterback is only the second quarterback of the 2027 class to make his decision this early. And my question to you, John Schreiner, is how did you feel about the pomp and circumstance and the flair in which he did it? 24/7 Sports had him on. He had a host of hats in front of him, including in Illinois and Nebraska. He threw the 2 Texas schools to the wayside, picked up the Illinois hat, put it on, said, "I'm staying home and going to Illinois." And then shucked the Illinois hat into the air, took off his shirt. He was wearing a Nebraska shirt, put the Nebraska hat on. His parents followed suit as well. You like this stuff? Do you hate this stuff? How do you feel about hat selections?
It's just become part of the deal. So I guess I've kind of just learned to accept and ignore. Like,
sure.
I just like when people do this now, it's kind of like whatever. I'm sort of numb to the whole thing now, unless it's something really wild. So I didn't have a big problem with it. The thing I'll say is if you're willing to go all in and make grandiose criticisms, remember who you're talking about.
It's a 16-year-old kid.
He's a sophomore in high school.
Yep.
So just think about the decisions you were making when you were a sophomore in high school.
Probably a good thing most people didn't have a camera on me at that time in my life.
Right. So, I understand that he's in the spotlight now, and, he's on essentially quote unquote television.
Sure.
But just remember, at 16 years old, you were probably watching Jackass and driving a shopping cart through a parking lot into a bush. So let's chill. Everybody chill on the criticism.
I thought it was really cool that he brought up 5 guys that he's played football with since they were in 3rd grade. Both of his parents, his head coach, and then his quarterback coach were there with him as well. The one thing that he made sure to kind of address was kind of why he was doing this at the time he was doing it. He decided to get his recruitment out of the way. He said, because we still got to go win state next year. He seems like a very driven young man, still very dedicated to the process, and clearly wants to get this out of the way. Dan, you brought this up a couple nights ago. His parents have been keeping how much the schools are offering NIL money to him kind of private, so he made his choice based on coach, and he openly brought up Matt Rule and Glenn Thomas, which I thought was really interesting, not Dana Holgorsen, and talked about the fact that the reason he chose Nebraska was because he felt Nebraska gave him the best choice to get from the college ranks to the NFL ranks. And I wonder, for some of these kids who are getting these massive amounts of NIL money, if they're not putting the cart before the horse a little bit in some of these situations where they're looking at, can I make a couple $100,000 here versus the millions they could make 2-3 years down the road if being developed properly?
Yeah, and I think this is the question that a lot of people have been asking since NIL became a thing.
Sure.
Are the decisions being made for the right reasons? And look, let's be honest, sometimes the right reason to make the decision is the financial one.
Well, and listen, it's not guaranteed you're going to get to the NFL either.
Right.
So this might be the most money you're ever going to make.
If your family is in a spot where you picking a school that maybe isn't the closest to home or isn't maybe the most comfortable environment for
best
you,
education,
or isn't going to give you the best educational opportunities, but it's going to set your family into a position where they can be out of poverty.
Yeah.
That's not the wrong decision all the time.
But I do love, and the fact that Trey Taylor's parents are willing to do this for him, right?
Sure.
And not, because a lot of parents see their kids and see dollar signs. They want to make the best decision based on how it's going to affect their pocketbook. I know nobody wants to hear that. It's happening every day now.
But and honestly, Jimmy, some people are backed into that corner.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I agree. I'm
by
not judging
circumstances
anybody.
of life.
It's just really it's just a very unique situation. Maybe it's not as unique as we think it is. Maybe they're just the first few to make it public. But to give your kid the opportunity to make their own decision, we see it so often on National Signing Day. I can't remember the kid's name that went to Arkansas, but his mom wanted him to go to Florida. And she grabbed the hat and ran out of the room. Parents not letting their kids send NIL or national letters of intent and things like that. And Trey Taylor, obviously an Illinois kid, had a chance to go to Illinois, would have probably made a lot of people around him happy, but felt like Nebraska was the best way to get to the NFL. Is really interesting for a couple of reasons, right? If the status quo stays the status quo, by the time Trey Taylor gets on campus, in theory, and I think things probably have gone massively wrong if this is the case, Dylan Raiola could have another year of eligibility. I think if Dylan Raiola is not going to the NFL draft after his junior season, there's going to be a lot of people around here scratching their head wondering what happened, and maybe wondering if Dylan Raiola is going to be here for his senior year anyway. Dayton Raiola will be on campus by that time as well. Plus, TJ Lateef will still be in that room. So you're going to have 3 4-star quarterbacks and a 5-star guy in that room.
Yeah.
And that's obviously if everything stays the same, injuries could pile up and what have you. But that makes for a really unique situation. And does Trey Taylor keep his commitment if that's still the same situation?
And this is the other thing. This is the other point here is that we're still talking about a sophomore. Just what I said before. A lot can change in 2 years. Like a ton. Like if you think that like he's said he's going to Nebraska and now the dogs are called off from everyone else, you haven't been paying attention.
Right.
Like he's still going to get recruited.
Probably the opposite of what's going to happen.
He's still going to get recruited. He's still going to get recruited hard. He's still going to have huge dollar amounts thrown his way. Now, seemingly his parents are going to protect him from that. But like honestly, if someone wanted to bypass the parent filter, you think that kid's not on social media?
He is.
Honestly.
Followed me back on Twitter today. Trey, appreciate it. Thanks. 402-951-6220 if you'd like to talk. We'd love to have you on the show.
So he's going to see big dollar amounts get thrown around, and maybe he doesn't know what he's going to get from Nebraska. And maybe he sees someone say, hey, hello, hey, Trey, look over here at Penn State. Got $2 million with your name on it.
It's interesting you bring that school up too, by the way, because here's the other thing. Talk about status quos. If everything stays the same, what is the pattern Matt Rule usually follows? Win in year 3, and then listen, for Trey Taylor to come here, it sounds like Matt Rule still got to be here right now. Yeah. If Nebraska comes out this year and they're able to put a run together, they win 9, 10, 11 games, but I say that not because that's my prediction, but that's been the Matt Rule pattern, right? Win 9 games, win 11 games, get a bigger and better job, etc. And this is year 3 under Matt Rule. I wonder, like, this is what's going to be interesting for guys that commit this early, is if a coach does leave, how much does that change their recruitment? Because even if we've seen coaches leave, we don't always see that kid follow them to the next school, but they don't honor their commitment to their original commitment either. And if Matt Rule is repeating history, and listen, I think a lot of people would trade Matt Rule for an 11-win season this year. Probably not with a giant smile on their face, but they would probably take it. But if Nebraska is able to keep recruiting at this level, and they're able to turn that into wins, and they stack wins, there's going to be a discussion about how do you keep Matt Rule here. Now, that discussion is going to come alongside a stadium project, the house settlement, revenue sharing, still raising funds for NIL, and all of that is going to go along with it. This may not be the best time in college football to be having a conversation about trying to keep a coach, because it's going to be more difficult than it ever has been.
Well, I'll say this. Like, it doesn't seem like, following what happened with the Carolina Panthers, that Matt Rule is necessarily interested in just chasing the bigger job now. Like, he seems to be really comfortable in Lincoln, seems to really like his job, his facilities, the support that he's getting. And like, where are you going to get better support?
I think there are, and a handful might even be too many.
I think there's maybe 2.
I think there's a few jobs he may pick up the phone for.
Penn State.
And I think
he went there.
And I think it'd be really hard for him if James Franklin were to move on to greener pastures, or things go horribly wrong and he moves on just involuntarily, that it may
moves
be
on to the great pasture in the sky. Is
yeah,
what you're saying?
it may be really difficult for Matt Rule to turn them down. Now, with that being said, Penn State's obviously got to open up, and unless it's not like he's not making a bunch of money, so,
Yeah.
But what does that conversation sound like? It'll be really interesting. But for the foreseeable future, Matt Rule has his 2027 quarterback to go along with a pretty already talented quarterback room and a good 2026 quarterback. We'd love to know your thoughts. Yep.
It was interesting to hear him say that it was the ability to get himself to the NFL and going and choosing Nebraska for that reason. Considering that a quarterback from Nebraska hasn't thrown a pass in an official NFL game since like the early 80s.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is because of Matt Rule's ties to the NFL with Carolina. Obviously, Glenn Thomas just came to Nebraska from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're right though. Like it's interesting because that tells you that Trey Taylor and this era of high school athletes see Dylan Raiola as a path to the NFL through Nebraska, and they're going to follow suit in that. That's what getting your quarterback in early can make a difference in it. Like, think about how much different we're talking about recruiting today. If Dylan Raiola doesn't commit to Ohio State, if Dylan Raiola doesn't commit to Georgia, and he was able to get in peer recruit, and you kind of put some of those athletes around him a little bit sooner, I think that's a big reason why they're trying to get Trey Taylor and have put such a full court press on, and the fact that he's really good. But they've seen the benefit of having that cornerstone guy at quarterback and what the transfer portal can make of it and how they could peer recruit. I think it's a lot of the reason they got Dayton Raiola to commit as soon as he did as well.
Yeah, and peer recruiting it's been big for a while, but it's only gotten bigger in social media era.
They've just never had this guy to peer recruit. They've never had a Dylan Raiola, a Trey Taylor to be out there.
A bona fide draw
that guys are going to want to play with and play
straight out of high school. Yeah. That's like that. And look, Trey Taylor is a 4-star quarterback as a sophomore, and he's the number 3 ranked quarterback in his class.
And there's a lot of people think he could have another star.
Well, if you're the number 3 ranked quarterback in your class, name me a high school class that had less than 3 5-star quarterbacks coming out of high school.
Yep, good point. That's a great point.
If he stays at 3, he's going to be a 5-star.
Yeah, and he may even move up. Hey, we'd love to know your thoughts tonight. If you missed the opening segment, check it out at SoundCloud.com/AfterHours1620. It was brought to you by our friends at Allo Fiber. Are you in Ralston? Are you in Papillion? Do you have bad internet service? Do you not have internet service at all? We've got great news for you. Allo Fiber is coming to your neighborhood. Digging has started in both Ralston and Papillion. They'd love to talk to you. Head over to allofiber.com. You know what you're going to talk to? You're going to talk to a real-life person. That's right. If you call or visit allofiber.com tonight, you're going to get 24/7 customer support from real-life people right here in Nebraska. Would love to set up your new services. Allo Fiber has been serving the Nebraska area since 2003. They'd love to add your home to their repertoire. We'll be right back. Troy Dannon spoke last night and unpacked a lot of stuff. We'll unpack what he said when we come back. 1620 The Zone.
Hey everybody, John Schreiner here for Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Don't settle for 2-star gear. Do what that coach down in Lincoln is doing. Hunt 5 stars. And you can find 5-star golf gear right at 78th and Dodge in the beautiful city of Omaha at Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. The Roan Golf Polos. I've been telling you about them for a while. And I'm going to keep telling you about them until you get in there and buy out the stock, because I will guarantee you that you will not be disappointed with these golf polos. They are gorgeous. They feel great, and they are going to impress your foursome on T1 when you step out on the course. You need to get in there and check out some of these great new Roan golf polos that Jerry Ryan has in stock. They've got all the great gear for summer, which is just around the corner. 78th and Dodge is the place, and tell them After Hours sent you. Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear, dressing Omaha for over 50 years.
Life is unpredictable, with seasonal storms and plumbing issues hiding around every corner. You can't predict the future. So when life happens, go with a trusted, reputable company like Paul Davis Restoration. Fire, water, mold, or storm damage can all be restored by Paul Davis Restoration. Don't live in the aftermath of tragedy. Restore your home today. Call Paul Davis Restoration at 402-553-0373 today.
How you doing? Greg Wagner joining you from the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. Time now for another Nebraska Outdoor Update. Let's talk trout, because thousands of 12-inch plus rainbow and cutbow trout, they're being stocked in select waters around the state for your spring fishing. These trout offer a close
.621 on a Thursday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Head over to bellevue.edu, register for classes Become a Bruin as early as this fall. You don't have to attend classes on a Friday night. You can even do the majority of your classes online. Check out BU Bruins or Bellevue.edu for more details. Tonight, Troy Danon, Nebraska's athletic director, and Kristen Kogan talked last night on the radio, and they opened up talking about the Osborne complex. Now they're already seeing and hearing about positive effect it's having on recruiting, and you have to wonder when you hear that if that's kind of the reason you're also seeing the lunge in trying to get the stadium project started too. Hey, these new facilities are kind of paying off. So how do we get more of these and start seeing it kind
People
of
like fancy new toys. This just in.
And back to the Trey Taylor discussion for a second, like and Troy Dan kind of brought it up like that, how much revenue sharing is an attempt to make the playing field even, and it's not going to. But like, you have to wonder if you have nicer facilities, if maybe that's saving you some money in NIL or revenue sharing as well, because you may not have to pay X amount of dollars if a player's like, hey, this weight room's pretty nice. It's not as nice as it is at Toledo, even though they're offering me more money because I'm one of one in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it has to be, in this era, there has to be across-the-board investment.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just say, well, we're going to spend a bunch of money on players. Well, you're going to spend a bunch of money on players to come there for 1 year, collect their paycheck, and go somewhere with better facilities. Like, honestly, if you're not if you're not competing at or near the top with everybody else in all departments, support staff, nutrition, which Troy Danon talked a lot about, facilities,
brought the head nutritionist with him,
right? Like, if you're not elite in all those levels, your recruits are going to find that school that is.
It's really like, obviously this isn't breaking news to anybody around here, but it has to be mind-blowing to the Michigans, the Oregons of the world, that Nebraska is able to keep up in the arms race despite their success on the field. Like, around here it makes sense because we understand how much support drives that monster 45 minutes away. But like, from a national standpoint, people have to be scratching their head. How is Nebraska landing Dylan Raiola? How is Nebraska landing Trey Taylor? They've had one winning season in a decade. They've got a brand new facility. They're able to keep up with all these revenue sharing dollars and all this NIL money despite having one winning season in 10 years.
Well, it's also a testament to the money management of the university.
Fair enough.
They've done a great job of prioritizing the things that keep people coming back
and raising money.
And they have, like, I mean, we're still not out of the woods yet, but the welcome was starting to wear thin, especially with the football fan base of like, we are giving you people everything we got and we are getting nothing back. Yeah. Like, you heard those rumblings for several years. And so to see Matt Rule finally have the breakthrough, get them back to a bowl game, like, that was also very important because now I think the excitement level is going to ratchet up and people are going to be back in the boat when maybe they had 1 foot in the water.
And for that reason, 7-6 is a lot more important than 6-7.
Oh, yeah.
He also addressed the shortcomings of the spring game, and it kind of feels like the vibes around all of it was nobody really loved it. Now, he talked glowingly about the garage sale, and it kind of seems like that's about the only part of the weekend that was a huge success. And he said that there was a ton of fun. And he said, and we got away and with a big deep breath, and the football team is healthy. And when the athletic director is echoing that, like, that tells you how much those injuries in that game last year really affected the psyche of this coaching staff and this team. Talk all you want about tampering and national TV and guys being able to be recruited while they're on TV playing in your spring game. It kind of feels like the loss of Bly Hill and Jaden Doss may have been a little bit bigger than we thought, even as big as they appeared to be in the moment.
Yeah, and look, I often talk about, you know, it's my belief. It's one of the I think the core principles of football is that you can't coach from a place of fear. Like, you have to do the things that are going to give you the best chance to win, but you don't have to be reckless about it.
Sure.
Right? And if you're doing things that are endangering players in like, look, you're going to be in danger when you play the game of football. Like, that's a truth. If you're putting players in unnecessary danger when there's nothing on the line, essentially, well, then maybe you do need to reassess that and look at how you're doing things and see why these injuries are happening. And it certainly seems like Troy Dannen felt that it feels like he is on the same page with Matt Rule about the spring game. And I don't think that it's coming back.
With that being said, they seem pretty lockstep about everything. And one of the things that Matt Rule has been very open about is that he would like to play on grass. And Troy Dannen addressed that last night as well. And he said, the turf is technically out of the stadium, but it's coming back in until they can get the actual stadium project completely completed, because they need to have something they can basically roll up and pull out and pull back in when they need to. And right now we've seen the pictures. Troy Dannen tweeted it out. If you haven't, all the turf is officially out of Memorial Stadium right now. I am a little surprised with how adamant Matt Rule has been about getting grass, that they're not finding some way to supplement that. But from a standpoint of trying to take care of it and maintain it, that does make a ton of sense.
Yeah, and the point there was that with these stadium renovation projects, the desire to put grass in and then tear it up with all the heavy equipment that they're going to be rolling in there,
Right.
it didn't make a lot of sense. So they wanted something that was removable. And it looks like that's what they're going to play with this year. And then as the construction goes on, he's hoping that next year, the 2026 season, is when they'll have natural grass.
Well, which is interesting because it's not just the grass, right? It's the sound system too. And anybody that's been in Memorial Stadium over the last 5 to 8 years understands why you need a new sound system. But they're going to kind of piece and part that together as well. There's new boards coming; those will be completely implemented. But they're not going to replace the entire PA system. They're going to replace it piece by piece, and then if need be, after the stadium's complete, do a complete overhaul, or see if they can kind of piece it together as they go. Which is, I think that's the most we've really gotten about a stadium update since Trev Alberts left.
Yeah, and he talked about some of he said, everything that's up high is new and it's all in good condition. But, the East Stadium is still a 1923 structure.
Yep.
And, they want that
Those tickets are expensive.
Yeah. And they want that to be secure for the next 50 years. So they have to be, manage reconstructing and enhancing and not taking away the character of the building. And look, that's not an easy job.
No, not at all.
So
he then moved on to football itself, was asked about the 105-man roster. So there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. And we're going to find out next week, allegedly, if the grandfathered in situation is going to happen. What does it look like if a player gets injured? How many, is it 105 solid? Can you have an injured reserve list? Can you have players that are not officially with the team, but are maybe practice squad guys or what have you? And he brought up the walk-on program. And I would be really interested to see, because I think a lot of people think of USC and Oklahoma and Ohio State and Florida, where the walk-on program isn't a necessity, and obviously they're gonna kind of probably drive the market, right?
It just doesn't have the history,
right? But I wonder, schools like Akron, Central Michigan, where it's not an illustrious spot, but probably a necessity to some degree, where they get local kids that don't go to Michigan, don't go to Michigan State, need a place that want to play Division I football, and they're willing to take a walk-on situation like that. I wonder if you could use we're going to be helping the little guy moniker here, but also keep a tradition in Nebraska. That's clearly very important.
Yeah, I think I would like to see maybe a 10 to 12 player sort of flex practice squad.
Yeah, that's what I think they're going to ask for.
And those guys who won't dress on game day, but will have the ability to be moved onto the active roster in case of injury or defection or whatever. I think that makes a lot of sense.
That's a good, what does that look like from a revenue sharing standpoint / transfer portal standpoint too?
Yeah. I think you can still have guys who are not necessarily on scholarship, that are trying to work their way onto the team, that aren't part of the revenue share, but could work themselves into it, given a set of circumstances where they are asked to dress on game day.
I talked about this a minute ago, but he kind of went on to the state of college athletics as a whole. And he said, we got into this trouble in college athletics by trying to level the playing field. The playing field is not level. And I'm going to add this in. Never has been, by the
No.
way. Then he went on to say, weather, facilities, loyalty from your fan base. We ran afoul and into an antitrust lawsuit. That stuff I would like to actively avoid, is what Troy Dannen said. And I think a lot of people looked at the NIL world as a way for the smaller guy to maybe be able to keep up with the Joneses. But usually the reason the Joneses are in the situation they're in is because they got more Joneses than you do.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of the case from since then. When we talk about the arms race that's in college football, it's been happening for a long time. All NIL and revenue sharing did was kind of put some nitrous in your trunk and make it go faster.
Well, it put a real dollar amount
That too.
on the race is what it did. And in the past, it was possibly spent on your support staff. Like that was the arms race, right? And now it's, well, how much can we pay these guys? How much money can we generate through our NIL collective and soon just in-house, as schools are going to be allowed to pay NIL dollars to players, seemingly due to this House ruling.
Yeah.
Look, when the story about NIL broke and we started having those conversations, I thought that there was a chance that there would be the odd, not totally, there would still be the odd recruit who was like, look, I can go and be the fourth highest earner in NIL at Texas, or I can go to Boise State and they're going to pay me the most, right? And I'm going to be a number one marquee player.
Sure.
I thought that would happen. It has not happened to the level that I anticipated because, as you say, the big programs just have more to spend, and they can get that guy as their fourth highest paid player for more than Boise State's paying their top guy.
Right. And I thought I almost nailed how we've seen the transfer portal go, because the way it's laid out, it makes sense from, if you're looking at just a dollar's perspective, to transfer every year.
Yeah.
You're always going to get more money. Now,
Well, it's the same in the job market.
exactly. The caveat to that is what happens if you're happy, and are you willing to mortgage that for another for the decimal to move to the right a little bit? That's a conversation players are probably having on a daily basis at this point.
Oh, sure. And that's why I think that there's more reform coming down the line. And I think, look, I've been banging this drum for a while, but I think that a transfer fee, some sort of regulation
Payback to the
around
university.
that, where like if you want a guy, you owe the school that he's at a certain dollar figure that is laid out the day that player steps on his original campus. That is going to curb some of this using the non-Power 5 and non-Division 1 as, a minor league stepping stone. It will curb some of it, and it will start to help level the playing field, because if you're a team and you've got 5 guys who are of the caliber that you're a non-Power 5 and you got 5 players who are transferring to Power 5s, you can rake in a substantial sum of cash and replace those players with those dollars that you're getting from the transfer fees to get new recruits in that are going to keep you at not a level playing field, but at least competitive.
The only way we get close to a legal to a competitive playing field, like a level, everybody's on the same margin, is if there's some sort of legislation that says while you're an active student, you can't benefit from money outside of the university if you're a paid employee. And
never happened.
It won't. And the reason for that is
it's illegal.
But you have a model in pro sports where it happens all the time. Even though there's a salary cap, their cap that they can make based off themselves is not put. Now, does that fall under a different category if we're talking about students? The Supreme Court has deemed that illegal. Now, the only way that's going to change is if they change their attitude on that. Which
they would have to give an exemption from the antitrust law to the NCAA.
Which is why I think your point about payment back to the university that's losing said player is the only way to kind of balance that out. Now, the last thing that Troy Dannen kind of talked about, I thought was really interesting. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance, and people were really happy with the way the flag football game ended. And he said, I think we need to keep an eye on women's flag football. I think that there's a push throughout
an Olympic sport.
There's a push through high school sports. The Olympics are clamoring for it. And listen, there was a pretty high quality football played in that game too. So he also mentioned kind of sleight of hand and kind of washed over it. We're looking to add another women's sport to the roster too, and said it with a pretty big smile after talking about flag football. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if the NCAA starts to sponsor it. That's the big hurdle is does the NCAA sanction it? And because if they don't, then it's just a club sport. And as we know about club sports, like they don't draw nearly the amount of revenue as officially sanctioned sports do. They just don't, for a number of reasons. One, they're not on television. They're not part of any TV package. Like, when was the last time you watched a Cornhusker hockey game on TV? Answer: you didn't.
Yeah, right. Zero.
Because they have one. You don't watch it because it's not on anywhere. So it for it to really take off, the NCAA is, or whatever governing body of the future is,
The artist formerly known as.
Yeah, they're going to have to be on board and sponsoring.
Well,
it.
and one of the things that I think he's interested in that is that there seems to be, specifically because the amount of money that they're dumping into this stadium that we just talked about, there seems to be a concentrated effort in how do we get more events at Memorial Stadium to help pay for this, right?
Yeah.
You've already ruled out the spring game. That's not happening.
Bye-bye.
So what else do we do to
We're
get
doing an equipment auction every other year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even mention that. So he said it was popular, but obviously you can't do that every year. Concerts have been a big hit. Garth Brooks sold out. It's been a Scotty McCreery was a thing.
It happened.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
He was there.
yeah, but that seems to be the push right now is how do we get events to happen at Memorial Stadium? There's just weird people in this state that'll just go to Memorial Stadium if there's an event. Like,
Well,
if it's
they
just,
had. Do you remember when Larry the Cable Guy played in Memorial Stadium?
I do. Yeah. And it just seems like they've kind of gone, we might have something here. And why are we leaving this to 8 Saturdays in the fall? We could really use this the whole summer while nobody's here.
Yeah.
And I think there might be a real big push to maybe get a flag football in the spring, just get people in a Memorial Stadium type movement.
Well, and that was the kind of whole point he made about pulling the turf up right
Mhm.
now, is that he wants to be able to do that so that he can have like a roll up turf that they can roll back, set up a concert, set up something else, and then roll it back out, which I'm all here for.
Yeah,
For now.
but the thing is once they go to grass, you're not doing that.
Right. You can't. It'll damage the field.
And if
too
you're
much.
rolling in stages and things onto the grass, you're going to damage the playing surface. That's just going to happen. Unless you're doing a something like what the Arizona Cardinals do, where you can wheel that turf out through the end zone and roll it out completely on wheels. Like,
Yeah,
once the
that's
grass is in, the grass is in, boys. Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's,
it.
It's grass. Hey, from red Nebraska to blue Nebraska, Greg McDermott caught up with John Bishop and Josh Peterson before we got on the air. We're going to dissect Coach Mack's interview with the boys from USC when we come back. If you missed this segment, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours. 1620 was brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. Have you been down to the Blackstone District, like, ever? Did you see a bunch of construction, nowhere to park? That is a thing of the past. Stop by. There's a brand new parking garage right outside of Cunningham's in Blackstone. Stop by for happy hours from 3 to 6 o'clock tomorrow. They've got a ton of great things on the menu that they only do in happy hour. Their chicken tenders are the largest in Omaha. You're not going to find any bigger, I promise you. Derek's honey mustard that he pairs up with it is fantastic. Also, you've heard us raving about the pretzel bites for a year, or BLT bites for a year now. They are fantastic. Stop down and try all of Cunningham's great, delicious menu tonight. It's Cunningham's Pub. 2 great locations. Stop by Blackstone tonight. We'll be right back. Coach Mack's interview will unpack in the other side of the break. 1620 Zone.
I took a little risk.
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Bob at Williams Law. We were just talking a lot about NIL and the future of college athletics. You know who comes in every week to talk about that kind of thing with us? It's Bob at Williams Law. He's always got the great legal opinions and steers us on the right course when we're talking about all those big issues facing the world of athletics. And let me tell you, no legal issue is a small one because it's on your mind 100% of the time if you're facing it. And you might have questions. You might not even know what your rights are. You might not know which way is up when you are facing a legal situation, be it criminal or civil. Well, let me tell you, Bob can be your North Star. He'll guide you in the right place, and he won't even ask you to pay him for the first meeting. That's right, a free, no obligation legal consultation. Get your questions answered and get to know Bob before you step into the courtroom. Check him out at williamslawllc.com. Blue album was better.
Ooh, hot take. It is the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Keep up to date on all the championship action happening on Bellevue's campus by downloading the BU Bruins app to your smartphone tonight. Greg McDermott has not spoken publicly since the announcement of Alan Huss being the coach in waiting. John Bishop had to fall off a lawnmower for this to happen for him on unsportsmanlike conduct, but Mac was nice enough to join John and Josh before we came on. And he brought up a lot of stuff. We're going to dive into it here. The first thing he kind of brought up was Josh Dixon and Freeman being in the portal and being a priority for him, and that kind of happening at the right time because obviously Fran McCaffrey out at Iowa and those guys looking for homes, and Mac already having a connection to Josh Dix as being able to previously recruit him when he was over at AL, and obviously Mac being an Iowa guy, that was on a pretty easy transition there. But obviously Owen Freeman came first, and that probably helped land Josh Dix as well. But it's the way he talked about Josh Dix was really interesting to me because he could score at all three levels. That's something we've all seen. But he talked about openly how Josh Dix can guard the best team's players. And one of the things that Creighton's going to have to figure out over the next 6 months is how do we play defense without Ryan Kalkbrenner? Because Owen Freeman is not the same body type as Ryan Kalkbrenner.
He's not 7'1".
He's not 7'1". He's not anywhere near 270 pounds. And the other interesting thing that Max said is he said, back when I was at Wayne State, I played 9 guys for 13 to 14 minutes, and I want to get back to that. Because Owen Freeman's not used to playing 38 minutes like we saw Ryan Kalkbrenner play. You're not getting 38 minutes out of Aleska Dimitrovic, who's coming in as an 18-year-old either. So they're going to have to figure out that rotation. That's something that Creighton has not done well for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think overall the job that they did, despite losing the top assistant in the portal, like there needs to be a 30 for 30 about this, honestly.
Sure.
Like they did such a good job getting guys.
They're going to be a top 8 team after losing Ryan Kalkbrenner and Steve Ashworth
out of the portal and convincing them that Creighton was the right place to be. It is remarkable the way they have turned this thing around. And look, we haven't seen anything on the court yet. We don't know what it's going to look like.
Sure.
Maybe it won't be as good as it looks on paper. That's possible. But it certainly looks good on paper.
He then addressed the Alan Huss thing and was asked why Alan Huss. And Alan Huss kind of brought this up with us on the Roll Jays podcast. And he mentioned that Alan Huss was ahead of the curve when it came to the NIL stuff. He was forthright and thought about it before it even happened. He said he's well-rounded and played at Creighton. And at one point, he'd really hope it would be Darren DeVries or Alan Huss to replace him. And when D-Rock got the Indiana job, it kind of came time to, if it was going to be one of those two guys, you kind of had to pull the trigger now. And I thought that was really interesting because it's not everybody that gets to pick their successor, and you're not guaranteed that. But the fact that Coach Mack went to Father Hendrickson and Marcus Blossom, and both of them signed off and gave their blessings, really kind of shows you,
pun intended.
Yeah, thank you. Where like the fact that how much Mack is actually appreciated. Yes, they absolutely put his name on a building. Yes, he's the winningest coach in school history, but that does not mean that a Marcus Blossom, a guy that didn't hire Greg McDermott, a guy that hasn't been here that long, is willing to just hand over the key program at his university and allow. Marcus Blossom didn't need to do that, and he's willing to do it for Greg McDermott and Alan Huss.
I'll say this: he didn't have to do it.
Yeah,
he might have needed to do it.
And what, like to keep Mac,
to keep the fans who have like just immense trust and belief in Coach McDermott.
I disagree, and here's why. Because
you don't think he might have needed to trust the winningest head coach to name his successor?
Because here's the other part of this. Alan Huss had to say yes.
Sure.
Now, Alan Huss was...
But Mac also said he talked to Huss before he broached the topic with the brass.
Right. But he also mentioned the fact that Alan Huss has interviewed at a lot of top schools.
Yep.
And had the ability to also stay at High Point.
Yep.
And not become a head coach. Now...
And
some things
had the roster to probably take him back to the tournament again.
Yep, and some things happened, and the process got sped up, obviously. But the fact that even if Marcus Blossom, and listen, this is all hypothetical. Marcus Blossom gave his blessing, so this is a moot point. But from a standpoint of if he would have said, "We kind of want to go with our own guy," and Alan Huss ends up becoming the head coach at
Villanova,
sure, or wherever, just a top name job.
Maryland.
This never gets discussed. It doesn't. I don't think he would have landed one of those jobs this year, because I think he would have went back to High Point if it wasn't Creighton and waited for the next round of coaching because there's going to be some pretty high profile jobs that open up. I don't think it even gets discussed because I doubt Mac would come out and publicly say it.
Yeah,
and it's not like Alan Huss would discuss it, and Marcus Blossom would have just made the hire anyway.
Here's why I think it's the best decision for Marcus Blossom, and this is purely hypothetical, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the best decision. I just don't think he had to do it.
But look, it's a win-win situation for Marcus Blossom. If it works out with Alan Huss and the program doesn't drop off at all, he looks like a genius for letting Mac name his successor, right? If it doesn't for some reason work with Alan Huss, I let Mac name his successor. Now I'm
Yep.
going to go hire my guy.
Yep.
And he comes out smelling like roses in both situations. There would have been no reason for him to say no to this.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I think he also respects Mac, and that's the main reason he said yes in the first place. And I think McDermott's earned it. So it's tenfold. But I just don't think he had to.
No, I'm saying he didn't have to, but I think he needed to for perception reasons around his relationship with Coach McDermott and his relationship with the fan base. And just from the perspective of this is the best win-win scenario that you can lay out.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do it by any means.
What do you think of the timing? Max said that he talked to Father Hendrickson and Marcus Blossom about this before the Big East tournament. That was also after the lifelong extension, the name on the building. But it's really interesting because you also have that moment at the beginning of the season where both Mac and Ed Cooley's talking about how maybe Creighton fans should really appreciate him being here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they gave us a little bit of insight what that looked like, because he was probably going, man, I miss the golf course and it's December outside.
I didn't find the timing to be weird at all.
I thought it was late. I was kind of surprised it came that late. I was surprised this wasn't an earlier discussion.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know. Things happen when they happen, right? Like, I think at that point, like, it was almost a foregone conclusion that High Point was going to be in the tournament, which means Alan Huss is going to get a ton of attention on the coaching carousel.
Good point.
And like Max said, like, it's probably now or never if we're going to entice Alan Huss to come here and he said that he already knew that Miller was leaving at that point.
Yep.
He had already accepted the job.
Yeah, Ryan Miller accepted the job the first day of the Big East tournament, so he'd already been offered it.
Yeah, and so I think that accelerated the timeline, and all those circumstances put together just made it like, well, if we're going to do this, we might
Let's
as well
do
do
it.
it now.
It's just funny because I think it's the right time to have done it, because he basically like open booked John and Josh today and was like, hey, this is exactly how all of these conversations went and when they happened.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that he probably broached the subject with Alan Huss at the start of the season. I would assume probably somewhere in October, November. And then right before Big East tournament time in February, had to finally say, all right, I think I need to bring this to the AD and I need to bring it to Father Hendrickson. And my biggest thing with all of it is he's earned so much goodwill within this program. Like, he's taken him to the NCAA tournament almost every single season that he's been here. He's been an outstanding coach and an outstanding leader within the Omaha community.
Yep.
He's very accessible as far as like head coaches in like a university go.
Very accessible. Mac's kind of a private guy.
He's
definitely the face of the program. I'll
Yeah.
give you that.
He's more willing than a lot of like college head coaches are to do the booster stuff that he does, to do the event stuff that he does.
I think I know what you're getting at, Dan.
He's around a lot more. Like, you can run into Coach Mac around town.
Sure.
I still
Run into him
remember
at Jerry Ryan. 78 the Dodge.
literally, I
Dressing
ran
him
into
off
him.
50 years.
I want to say it was one of his first years coaching, probably like maybe 3 or 4 years in. I was in the Hy-Vee on 178th. And he was picking up his dry cleaning.
Well, he doesn't live out there anymore.
He doesn't.
Also mentioned that on the air today.
Yeah.
Hey,
Famously, I was like, what? I was like, Mom, I just saw Coach Mac in the grocery store.
I think the impression comes
hold that
for
thought,
me.
because we got more to get to on this. Let's go ahead and get to a break here because we're really behind. We'll punt on the social media soundbite. We'll get to more of what Coach Mac told the guys from USC today. He got into Fedor Zugic's situation, which becomes really intriguing. We'll talk about all that and more. If you missed this segment, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It's brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. Are you in the job market? Have you ever worked in HVAC before? You just looking for a new job in general? Stop by ControlledComfort.com tonight. Fill out a job application. They're looking for experienced and new HVAC workers. Check out Controlled Comfort for your new job today. We'll be right back reviewing more of what Coach Mac had to say with the boys from USC at 1620 Zone. I made a mistake today. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen for Pepper Jack's Grill. I stopped at a different place that serves burritos today just because I was in a hurry and I was conveniently by it. And I had a Pepper Jack's burrito yesterday, and it was massive. There was so much food in it. I was just blown away. I couldn't even finish the whole thing because there was so much in it. And I got a burrito from a local burrito shop today. Not great. It was about one half of the size. Well, don't make the mistake I made. Stop by a Pepper Jack's tonight. Grab yourself a steak and shrimp burrito like I did yesterday. Get all your favorite grilled vegetables on top of it. Get some onion rings to go on the side with it, or maybe some jalapeno poppers to add some spice. It's Pepper Jack's Grill. There's 10 great locations. Stop by tonight and grab dinner.
Time to play the game.
Putting a bow on the first hour here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Bellevue University. Head over to bellevue.edu, register for classes, and become a Bruin tonight. Greg McDermott spoke with Josh and John from USC before we got on the air. And the two most interesting quotes from the entire interview came towards the end of it, in my opinion, where he was talking about recruiting, and he said, we've been recruiting, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, we've been recruiting like Fedora's not going to be available next season because we still don't know what his eligibility is going to look like. Now, they thought they were going to have him last year at the beginning. They didn't. They had to wait. Pop Isaacs goes down. They get a gift from the NCAA.
Yeah.
Fedora becomes available, and that obviously changed it. But that sentiment alone makes it really interesting that they went after a guy like Alexa Dimitrievich in the high school ranks, as well as keeping Fedora on his roster. Now, they do have one spot available, and Max said they're going to kind of play it by ear with Fedora's situation, maybe go out and get one more guy, maybe not for that reason. But he was talking about his philosophy on recruiting, and this one made me chuckle. He said, trying to recruit a selfish person and try to make them an unselfish basketball player, yeah, that ship has sailed for me. And you can make it that what it is, and you could probably tie one or two names into that equation if you probably thought about it really hard. But
Excuse me, I sneezed.
Oh, excuse you. Bless you, Dan. Yeah, the dynamic of a guy like Josh Dix is really interesting to me because he's a carbon copy from a body standpoint of Baylor Shireman. Like, literally same height, same weight, right when Baylor was coming out of South Dakota State. He's a little bit bigger, actually. He could play defense. He could shoot the three. He could score at all three levels. But he's really, like, when you look at the assists that some of these guys have on this team, and listen, they've added a lot of guards, too. That helps. This looks like a really good group of guys that are not only going to share the basketball, maybe even look for the extra pass and truly run a Greg McDermott system the way it's supposed to.
Well, and like it may be obvious at this point, but it bears saying out loud that you got two guys who've already played together before.
That's a good point.
Like the chemistry between those two, you probably don't need to work on very much.
If you'd like to hear from both of them, please feel free to go subscribe to the YouTube channel for the Roll Jays podcast where I talk to both of them. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's so
Shameless.
that is just a tremendous get to have those two guys who played together already to get them as transfers to the same school. Like, I don't know if you can overstate that, how important that is to the future of the, not,
because you're worried about forming
the
chemistry,
season.
and for two guys, it's already there.
Yep.
And that's not even to mention that you're returning Jackson McAndrew and Ty Davis to some degree, and then you've also got a bunch of guys that are coming back from last year anyway, and Isaac Trout. And he talked about Josh Townley Thompson, or Thomas, excuse me. I thought that was really cool. Josh is technically a walk-on. They're giving him a scholarship and honoring his commitment to this team and saving a roster spot for him. I'll say this about Josh. He's the first guy out there every single game getting shoot around in, and he's usually the last guy to leave the court. So I think it's very cool that Mac is honoring that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, honestly, that's how he's run this program.
Agreed.
It's just been a class organization up and down. There's never, I mean, you had the one thing that happened, the one scandal, but other than that, man, like, there's never been even a sniff of impropriety, of like players being treated poorly, of people leaving because they felt like they weren't getting, the treated the right way. Like, in that regard, it's just been like a dream.
The other thing that was interesting that a lot of people have heard about, and I had a lot of people asking me about, there was a lot of conversation about Mike Nesbitt, the top assistant from High Point. There was a lot of rumors that he was coming here before the Alan Huss stuff got announced. And that gets announced today that he's actually been on the staff for the past couple of weeks. And now they have 5 on the court spots that'll help. The one thing that hasn't been addressed, I'm still really interested to figure out what happens with Mitch Ballock. He can no longer be a graduate assistant. They find a way for him to work on the coaching staff or in the office or whatever. So he was a massive part of what they did offensively last year.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to keep somebody like that around, a legacy.
He's a Mac guy.
But ultimately, there's a limited number of spots.
Right.
Like, and maybe in the future when Huss takes over fully, there's going to be an open spot on the coaching staff.
Yeah, does Mitch leave for a year, come back?
Maybe
Whatever.
he goes and cuts his teeth somewhere else as a low level assistant.
Worked for Trey Ziegler. Hey, if you missed this segment tonight, check it out at SoundCloud.com/AfterHours1620. It was brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. Are you the decision maker in your company? Do you need help with SEO? Do you need a website built? Maybe your presence isn't where it should be from a social media standpoint. Have Pixel Fire Marketing's entire team that's locally right here in Omaha help you grow your business online today. Check out pixelfiremarketing.com for more details tonight. We're buying or selling on the other side of the break. 1620 zone.
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Paul Davis Restoration. Storms, they're a coming. Are you worried about the structural integrity of your home? Have you had water in the basement in the past? Are you worried that that basement area is getting a little too damp for your liking? Well, worry no longer, because Paul Davis will come out and get it fixed up the way it was before any of that nonsense went down. Give them a call at 402-553-0373. They can deal with whatever problems you're having: flooding, water damage, mold mitigation, all of that. You don't have to worry about it any longer. Put that burden on Paul Davis. They'll take it right from you. Give them a call, 402-553-0373. It's Paul Davis Restoration.
in the second hour here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Over a decade of being number one in the industry doesn't happen by accident. Check out pyramidroof.com for a free estimate on your roof, your windows, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com to get a free estimate tonight. It is time for Buy or Sell with Dan Campion. Dan, what do we got?
We have not all really been together to talk about this since it happened. Fran Brown's Syracuse head coach and Matt Rule, our guy.
Disciple.
Oh, and Matt Rule, disciple, talked openly about his star wide receiver, Trebor Pena, wanting $2 million. He said, "You ain't going to make more than a coordinator." Buy or sell, this is the start of a trend.
This is something that kind of came about when NIL was being discussed. Are coaches going to be okay with their players making more money than them at the college level? Fran Brown said a lot more than that, and I buy that it was on good merit. But I sell that this is going to be a trend. I mean, listen, athletes are going to start making north of $2 million pretty regularly, and most coaches are going to have to put aside their ego to understand that.
Look, a lot of players make more than their head coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, the majority of them.
So this is the way of the world, man. No longer is it going to be just a small handful of people who profit off of college athletics.
Right.
That's the old way. You better, to use the turn of phrase that is extremely popular, get busy living or get busy dying. You are a dinosaur if you think this way.
Thanks, Andy Dufresne.
It was actually Red who said that.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
I think he repeated it.
Do
Do you remember the name of the town?
Zihuatanejo, Mexico.
There you go.
Zihuatanejo.
Don't try to quiz me on the Shawshank Redemption. It's one of my cabin movies.
My wife had never seen that movie until we started dating.
I
don't know how you go through life without seeing the Shawshank Redemption, but that's neither here nor there. Go ahead, Dan.
Man, probably because it's like 3 hours long.
It's so good, though.
It is. The Steelers' quarterback room is now Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson. Buy or sell, Aaron Rodgers will be a Steeler in 2025.
I sell. I still don't think he's going to Pittsburgh. I think it's a horrible marriage. I think it's bad for both sides. Aaron Rodgers podcast coming to a website near you in 2025. That's my take.
Hey, I've been on this train since the start. Since the end of last season, I have told you that Aaron Rodgers is not playing football in 2025. He's not going to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Dan, this is your boy.
This is my boy. I also believe that vaccinations are dumb and that ayahuasca is a great way to look into your inner soul. But no, I'm going to disagree with John in the fact that I do think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Steeler in 2025. I just have this gut feeling that they're not going to be okay with Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson.
I got to do something.
Is there 3 options?
Do you remember Skylar Thompson?
It even scares me that
of Dolphins fame?
Of that list, Will Howard is probably the one who gets the start, in my opinion.
What I'm thinking.
And that's a bit freaky. But
Mason Rudolph can hand it off.
Yeah, he can.
That's fine.
Ain't got Najee Harris anymore.
Well, remember though, he's got that beef with what's his name, Myles Garrett. Don't want to get hit with a helmet again in a game for some reason. But I would caution anyone who is a Steelers fan to say, you're not going to enjoy the Aaron Rodgers experience because it is no longer the Aaron Rodgers huck it, chuck it football experience. It is now the I have opinions Aaron Rodgers experience, which is a bad experience.
It is, unless you're on the Connor Happer show. Dan, what else we got?
Stanford pitcher Najari Candy left Palo Alto to pursue $1 million NIL deal at Texas Tech. A former Stanford athletics administrator anonymously said,
"Coward.
Arrogance is prevalent across college athletics, but the level of arrogance at Stanford is unique. There are so many Stanford people who were like, how could she possibly leave for money? Buy or sell, the Stanford, Northwestern, and Dukes of the world are going to have to pick between education and cash for their athletes in this new world of college athletics."
I sell because I don't think it's a binary choice. I don't think you have to choose between education and cash. I think you can do it in a way that makes sense. But you're going to have to adapt. This is just what we were talking about. This is the new era. If you're operating under the old system and you're expecting to be competitive in the new era with your old system, good luck. It's not going to work. So Stanford, Northwestern, Duke, yes, they want to be high-minded academic institutions, and there's absolutely a place for that. But you are going to have to loosen your transfer rules,
That's where I was
accept
going.
credits from other institutions, and you're going to have to pony up the money. You don't have to choose between the two. You might have to modify some things to stay with both, but you absolutely do not have to choose between the two.
Yeah, but from a resources standpoint, it's going to be really interesting, right? Like Stanford's kind of already been left by the wayside once with the Pac-12 kind of folding up and kind of being left without a seat at the table. And do they feel like their university needs athletics to survive? I mean, I think they're one of those few schools that probably doesn't need that that's out on the West Coast right now because of the Palo Alto money banks that are just sitting around them waiting to donate money to the university. But it's going to be interesting to see how Northwestern and Duke, and probably more Duke than Northwestern, since in the ACC and not really with a seat at the table in the ACC right now, kind of pivot on their thoughts on maybe laxing their educational refrain, and are they willing to kind of look by the wayside at maybe some transcripts and let guys in because they're going to help generate money for the football and basketball program?
It's going to be interesting to watch because it's not just them. It's also, schools like, Vanderbilt, who's in the SEC. And
see, I don't know if I would include, I know Northwestern was in the question, but I don't know if I would include a Big Ten or SEC school into that equation just because
they're going to have a lot of
the
money.
money's just going to be there because of their affiliation with their conference.
Yeah. It's just the tight academic standards. And look, I know that Notre Dame is a unique situation, but Notre Dame's got tight academic standards too.
Yeah.
And they have managed to put themselves right in the conversation. So
they got a lot of money at Notre Dame?
Well, the Catholic Church has a lot of money. Yep. So
all right. But I personally sell on this because I actually want to parrot a point that was made by the greatest women's basketball player and coach actually to ever be at Stanford. Both Cameron Brink and Tara Vanderveer. As we all know, the cool thing to do nowadays when you have an off season is to start a podcast, which Cameron Brink has done. And she stated on that podcast, I had multiple NIL deals on the table to leave Stanford and make a boatload of money. But I chose to stay at Stanford because I saw the vision of our program, number one, for the athletics. And then she also just straight up pointed out, when you go to a university like Stanford, there are a lot of great connections that you make due to, number one, the proximity, number two, the alumni base, and number three, just the fact that if basketball didn't work out, I have a 4-year degree from Stanford that, I'm going to tell you a secret, it's good in every single hall in America.
But this is the conversation that we're having, Dan. The conversation we're having is like, okay, I can stay at Stanford and hope my athletic career works out, or I can go to Texas Tech and make $2 million right now.
And how many people have the foresight to know the value of what those connections mean after school?
How long is it going to take you with your Stanford degree to make $2 million?
Not that long, to be honest, depending
depends on what you do.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I think when you're someone who is recruiting to one of these schools, you're looking for the kind of person who is going to say, I understand what this school and the connections that it can provide me can actually do for me in the future. I know it's not going to always be all, but to get into the Stanfords, the Northwesterns, the Dukes, the Vanderbilts of the world, you have to have a certain level of academic rigor and a certain GPA and test scores to get into those schools. And for them to even look at your application and look at your resume, it's one of those things that the right kind of people will stay at the right kind of university for either a vision or for the education.
I don't know that that's always going to be true, man. I think that if you're an elite athlete who also values education, like at some point, if the elite educational institution that you go to isn't willing to give you a fair market value for what your NIL is, more of those people are going to go somewhere else because you can still get a good education somewhere else and make $2 million while you're doing it.
You know, I didn't think about that. Now I'm like really excited for, because my knee jerk response to this was going to be, well, you could always go back to Stanford after your athletic career is over. What if they start being petty? What if schools are like,
Yeah.
nah, man, you went and got the bag. Hope you enjoyed it. We're not letting you back into admissions. Thanks anyway. Like the 30 for 30 on that 20 years from now would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I promise you it's going to happen at least once.
Oh yeah. John, you and I can agree to disagree.
Eh,
But we have one last question.
He
Okay.
yells at me, and that tells you guys can agree to
'cause
disagree.
I'm nice.
I was going to say I'm nice. I don't want to lie. Go ahead, Dan.
John, your trash take last night was about Giannis and the way he handled the Tyrese Halliburton situation. Halliburton's father now is choosing to stay away from the team during the rest of their playoff run. Buy or sell that this is a good move by the senior Halliburton.
I buy this. This is a tremendous bit of self-awareness. Realizing that maybe your emotions have the tendency to get the best of you and you do stupid things in high pressure situations when you're excited. To say this, and look, he was, I'm sure, or urged by his son to make this decision because it brought a bunch of negative press on Tyrese Halliburton as well. I just, look, this is a good decision, and he made a bad one the other night. This is a better decision.
This is a complete and total cop out. Let me tell you why Tyrese Halliburton's father is not coming around for the rest of this playoff run. Because they are about to get absolutely boat raced by the Cavs. There's not going to be good basketball to watch. And probably got all of his celebrating out of the way. I hope he's doing this for all the right reasons. I don't think he's going to be enjoying watching much more of the It's not going to be very long, and he's not probably going to enjoy much more of the Pacers playoff run anyway. If you missed buy or sell tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours. 1620 was brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. You looking for a new job? Controlled Comfort is hiring. That's right. If you're not versed in HVAC but want to learn the industry and get the skills needed to be a successful HVAC person, you could do it at Controlled Comfort by heading over to controlledcomfort.com tonight. Maybe you have a ton of experience and you're just looking to work for the best HVAC company in Omaha. You could do so at controlledcomfort.com as well. We'll be right back. We got to catch up with Brian Munson from HuskerOnline.com. We're still going to get to Dan and John's Hockey Corner and a whole lot more as the After Hours Lounge rolls on. 1620 The Zone.
What you know about that? What you know about that? Hey, what you know about that?
Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy out here for Bob at Williams Law. Williams Law is a locally owned law firm that can represent you or your son or daughter if they're finding themselves in trouble. We've seen an influx of disturbances in local parking lots and things of that nature with young kids getting in trouble. If your son or daughter has been involved in a situation like that, WilliamsLawLLC.com is here to help. Bob and his team will give you a free, no obligation legal consultation, walk you through your children's rights and explain the process to you. Head over to WilliamsLawLLC.com and get a free, no obligation legal consultation tonight. 7:30 on a Thursday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. With over a decade of being number one in Omaha, that doesn't happen by accident. Head over to pyramidroof.com. Book a free estimate for your windows, your roof, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com tonight. Brian Munson from Husker Online now joins us here and from On3 as well on After Hours. B. Muntz, good evening, sir. How are you?
What's up?
I don't know if you've heard, there's been some pretty big news in the Husker world today. Nebraska lands Trey Taylor's 2027 quarterback commitment today. How does that change the future of Nebraska recruiting, in your opinion?
Well, I think it demonstrates a little bit about how this staff is, very serious, and what they've been able to do at that quarterback position has been pretty amazing. I mean, from where things stood, they took 2 Elite 11 quarterbacks to, grabbing Latif, to getting Dayton, to now landing Trey Taylor. It's a pretty amazing group, and I just kind of write my Tunnel Talk section for tomorrow, and I kind of mentioned it like in the what does it mean today. I think what's really interesting about this whole scenario is that, this is the earliest to my knowledge. It's really difficult to kind of research it, but I think that this is the earliest that any quarterback has ever committed in Nebraska, prior to their junior year. And this sets up, I mean, look at how influential and how active Trey is on social media.
Yeah.
Look at how he has a brand of what he is doing, and and it's all very calculated. And I could really see him and Dayton really trying to do their best to put together a 2026 group, and then the keys get handed over to Trey, who does the 2027 group. And I think it's really going to be fun to watch, because I think that it's going to be a smaller group in 2026. You got 20 some odd kids, or close to 20 kids, that are kind of set up for official visits already in June. And I look at those guys as like the top of the board. That's what you got right now. And it's really going to be interesting. And they brought in a ton of really good 2027s, especially a lot of big men, a lot of big offensive linemen. So it's really going to be fun to see how things kind of move forward over the next years.
Brian, we kind of talked about this, Jimmy and I did earlier, but one of Trey Taylor's reasons for choosing Nebraska was his stated belief that it was a path to the NFL for him, which struck me very interesting. Insofar as that Nebraska as a school hasn't had a quarterback throw a regular season pass since the early 80s? And now Nebraska's seen as a school that is a path to the NFL for quarterbacks and has become one of the centerpieces in quarterback recruiting in college football. How did we get here?
Well, there's legitimacy behind Matt Rule. There's legitimacy behind Dana Holgorsen. I think there's legitimacy behind the facilities, the NIL program. I think the Big Ten / SEC and the picture that it paints for, if you want to go to the league, you're going to come out of those two conferences. I think that plays another part into it. I think it's just a brick upon brick, but the bottom brick is Matt Rule. But the bottom brick is that Matt Rule, look, I'm not going to say anything that you guys are going to disagree with here. It might shock a couple of your listeners, but I watched the Ohio State spring game, and if Dylan Raiola was in Columbus right now, he's starting. He's starting at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go ahead and say it. So where does that put Dylan at in terms of the best quarterbacks in the country? Now, I just saw a poll that came out, and I don't think he was in the top 10. And maybe that's fair. Maybe I don't have the rest of the nation kind of scouted out. But when I typically want to scout the best quarterbacks in the country, I will start with or get around to Columbus, Ohio very, very quickly. They are that high up on the list. They are a Big Ten standard. It's them and Michigan. And everybody else is trying to be the the guys that can knock him off. And so I think it's really Rule. I think it's all the other things put together. I think that there's plenty of money in the NIL. I think the profit sharing is going to be there. So I think it's a lot of things. It's not just one thing.
Were you surprised that in Trey's announcement today, he was asked why he went to Nebraska? He mentioned Matt Rule, but he also mentioned Glenn Thomas, and it was probably by accident, but did not mention Dana Holgorsen at all.
Well, I don't think necessarily that's a huge deal with him as far as the OC is concerned. I do feel like Thomas is a very underrated, undervalued recruiter. You could see last year when they started to lean on him and they were trying to figure out what the real process was going to be and who was going to help out in Florida.
Sure.
And they kind of did it in the aggregate, and Thomas played a role. Thomas played a significant role. So I guess in that regard, it's not too surprising at all. I think he's really going to help out in an area, and I think that he's going to have just maybe his one guy that he's going to go after. But if he can get guys like this year after year, I don't think anybody's going to argue with it.
Moving on from the Trey Taylor story, a lot of these coaches are posting pictures from their travels around the area. We had some from EJ Barthel. Terry Braden's been out there. You hearing anything from the road as far as what they're doing on the recruiting trail at this point?
Well, the only one that I caught up today with was, because I thought the timing was interesting, was that Nebraska was in Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. So there was a new offer out to a 2028 edge linebacker, and I wanted to kind of catch up with him to see maybe if there was a connection with Trey Taylor, and there was. I mean, so I think that was kind of funny, but I saw that they were at DeSmet, so Titan Davis, I think, is coming in that first weekend in June. He's obviously at the very top of Nebraska's board when it comes to defensive linemen. A lot of those schools too was kind of a mystery, kind of checking them out. There was nothing really else there to kind of figure out what they were or where they were at. So I got to kind of go back through and re-diagnose that. I was a little bit busy this afternoon covering the commitment and getting ready to talk to you guys and writing up 3 and out. So I do feel like it's going to be an interesting time. I think Nebraska's playing a little bit of catch up here with putting some coaches on the road. So might see a few new offers come out over the coming days.
With that being said, Nebraska gets its first 2027 commitment before it gets its fourth 2026 commitment. When do you think we see the fourth person jump into this class?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I said this, and I tried to say it in the most polite way possible, but between, I think, the coaching changes, I think the reexamination of the current board, the players that they had coming in last fall, last summer, that you and I could kind of look at each other and just kind of rip off, 5 or 7 names that we could have felt like by now could have been part of this class, where you could have been sitting at close to 10 players. And as part of kind of that, standing up that new recruiting board, they kind of just scrapped it. And the players that they have, though, on their list now, I would say from a talent and a ranking perspective, are better than what it was they were considering, all of last year going into that November, December timeline. So I think that's the big news, but it doesn't look good currently kind of on paper. So, I mean, as you're kind of looking and you're kind of trying to figure it out, I mean, it's not simple because, I mean, I think I've been saying Jace Reynolds' name now for the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's, he's got some new suitors that he needs to go check out. I would say Darian Jones, but Darian Jones has all the suitors that he needs to go check out as well. So I don't know. I really don't know at this point who I would say I was comfortable with going ahead and saying is the next guy that's going to join the class in the 2026 group. I really don't know.
I don't think we've talked to you since the the Husker games, which replaced the spring game this year. So, do you have a sense of what their impact on recruiting was not having an actual spring game, and what was the visitor situation for this event?
Yeah. So, I think I haven't got a chance to write all this first. So, came back and got sick. I was telling Jimmy ahead of time. I was like, "You guys aren't going to catch me on any type of camera tonight because I'm still."
We're sure you look beautiful.
Very much. Yes, I'm still very much recovering with what's going on. If you can't tell from my stuffy nose, but the feedback from all the recruits was very positive. I mean,
Are you surprised by that?
I was. I absolutely was. I mean, I was halfway mortified with how few fans showed up. Let's just put it that way. And
they were all at the garage sale.
Yeah. Then to hear the recruits say, "Man, it was loud in that stadium," and there was it was only half full. Half full. It wasn't a tenth full.
Right.
So it was so interesting, I think, in that regard, to kind of hear it from them, but then kind of knowing what we all know about, just from a failure in terms of the numbers and what it really has gone from and what it is now. I don't know how Nebraska can kind of roll out another experiment, because I don't think anybody will buy the tickets. That's my personal opinion. I kind of put it in 3 and Out on Wednesday. I said, look, they're going to have to figure out some sort of a sustainable process or plan about how first and second guys are going to get 2 series apiece, and we're going to go back and do a second, thirds. Then it's going to be third, fourth, and fifths from there on out. Basically for a real scrimmage, and we're still going to do all the competitions that we're gonna need and get to. And yeah, you're going to see a bunch of offensive linemen eating a bunch of wings and all that good stuff, and bench press and all that good things, and flipping tires or dragging tires. You're going to see all those things, but you need to see, I think, a little bit more of a competitive game. I think Nebraska needs their fans. I think the NIL needs their fans. I think the NIL needs businesses in Lincoln having successful weekends like they didn't get last weekend, when 80 or so thousand fans didn't show up. And that's a problem. You just basically gone ahead and just said, no, we don't need the money in Lincoln this weekend. Go ahead and stay home. And that, I think, I don't think that's the best message to send to the businesses in Lincoln. I don't think it's the best message to send to your fans. I mean, you got some really sacred things still that you're protecting. I think a lot of people will roll their eyes, but you still have the sellout streak, no matter how it's happened and how it's been retained. That's a totally different matter. But the fact is, it's still out there, and it's something I think that Nebraska should be holding on to very desperately, because it is still something that is repeated to me all the time by those recruits, that they are fascinated by the fact that Nebraska has sold out that stadium so many times in a row. So I think they need to figure out what that plan is going to look like, or decide to scrap it and just not do it. And if it's really that big of a tampering thing or an injury thing and all that good stuff, then just bring the recruits in and just do a blowout thing, or do a scrimmage in front of the families only. Do something like that, because that's something else. I did hear from someone that there was, a family that came in to watch their son play and didn't get a lot of playing time. And it just fell really short in comparison to what they had seen before in previous years, at the spring game.
I asked John this last night or 2 nights ago, and I think it's a really interesting debate. What do you think happens next? What does your gut tell you about next year? Do they go back to a traditional spring game? Do they have a scrimmage with another team? Do they do something like they did this year, or something completely different?
I don't think D1s can scrimmage another team.
Yet.
Yet.
I agree. I mean, UNK's done it the last 2 years. And I think it's a fantastic way to get out, and obviously softball does it. I just watched them do it the other night, right? So I've seen that happen, and I can see other sports doing it. But the D1 football level can't do that yet. And I think it comes because of it is a tremendous expense, for it to kind of get floated. But they're going to have to find another solution because I think people love the idea of, this top sport that, every Nebraskan basically supports, and not having anything now at the end of the spring. I think it's really hitting on everybody, and I think on top of everything else, it's become like not sacred when it comes to college football, and it's getting away from the traditional. It's just another slap in the face.
That's Brian.
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What?
Oh, I thought you were done. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I should be. That would have been a great way to wrap up right there.
That's Brian Munson from Husker Online, who's recovering from being sick. Brian, we hope next week when we talk to you, you're feeling better.
All right, guys. We'll see you soon.
Check out all of his work at HuskerOnline.com and follow him on Twitter at Brian Munson _ as well. If you missed this segment tonight, check it out at SoundCloud.com /After Hours 1620 is brought to you by AX Plumbing. Home or residential, they do it all. Check out AXPService.com for all your plumbing, water heater, gas piping, and backflow prevention issues. AX Plumbing is locally owned and operated. They'll leave your home or business cleaner than they found it. Check out AXPService.com tonight. We'll be right back giving you a Papillion Sanitation Trash Takes the Night. You're at 1620 The Zone.
DJ, that's my DJ. Go DJ, that's my DJ. Go DJ, yeah. Well, Weezy Wee, step up to the mic, dude. Do what you do, ladies and gentlemen.
Mac Main is always telling you that it is Go DJ, and it's Dan Campanen here to tell you to go to one of Pepper Jack's 10 great local locations. Listen, they've got new sides, they still have the best fries, and of course, it's the only place in town where I get my steak gunner Philly with all the vegetables, including that jalapeno juice, to make it extra spicy and extra wonderful every single time. So if you want to be like Mac Main or like Dan Campanen, go to one of Pepper Jack's 10 great local locations tonight.
Wrapping up the After Hours Lounge on a Thursday night on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Over a decade of being number one in Omaha, where they never forget to play closing time and always give you a free estimate for your roof, your windows, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com tonight. And it is time for our Papillion Sanitation trash takes of the night, and I'm starting us off because it's dog pile season, folks. LeBron goes one and done in the playoffs again. After getting one of the best players in the world added to his roster, LeBron and coach JJ Redick can't get out of the first round, and they get bounced in embarrassing fashion. And I'm here to remind everybody that unless LeBron has two superstars, two all-stars on his team, he very rarely, if at all ever, makes it to the conference finals. And by the way, when teams start playing defense in the NBA, the king tends to disappear at times, specifically after the calendar flips to May. And I don't want to hear excuses about he's 40. He still was one of the top scorers and top producers in the NBA all season long. He's playing at a high level, and I'm here to tell you that this is not 40-year-old LeBron James. This has been LeBron James the entire time he's been in the NBA. He just doesn't have as many pieces around him to compensate for it.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, congratulations, Jimmy. You stole mine.
Oh, did I? Sorry.
Of course you did. What do you think I was gonna do for my trash take?
Sorry.
And social media soundbite.
Feel free to keep piling on if you need to.
LeBron James, video games, a new pair of frames, baby. Wolves in 5. You know when I knew they were cooked last night? At the start of the broadcast.
Tip off.
When Reggie Miller literally said JJ Redick was avoiding the critical questions about him.
Oh, you didn't see that? It was bad. That was not a good look for JJ Redick.
So he did it in the press conference after the game, but then he also did it in their media meeting before, because they were like, this is something we're going to have to talk about in the lead up to the broadcast. And he refused to answer the question, and kind of reading between the lines, Reggie Miller was like, I had to calm him down. And he was being a little bit childish about it. And everyone's been playing it off today. Like, oh, he's a first-year head coach. Nah.
What's your do you want to give us a different trash take then?
That's the only one that I had prepared.
Okay.
That's the one he had. That was.
I was ready to rip JJ
Dan,
Redick a new B.
Dan's trash take. Jimmy's right. There we go. All right.
that works for me.
My trash take tonight involves my favorite hockey team. I told you it was going to happen. The Caps are one step closer to a Stanley Cup, trying to send Alex Ovechkin. I know he hasn't announced retirement or anything, but I think when the Caps win the Stanley Cup this season, Alex Ovechkin rides off into the sunset as the all-time leading goal scorer, double fisting Stanley Cups. And that is the image we remember. This is what I want to see. I don't want to remember Alex Ovechkin on a different team other than the Washington Capitals.
Oh, it'd be great.
Washed up, playing on the third line, in Ottawa. I don't want to see that. The Capitals need to win the cup this season and send Ovechkin out the way he deserves to be sent.
Here's the thing. And I'm sorry we didn't get to the hockey corner tonight.
That's why I went here.
For the first time ever, I was going to give Ovi his flowers. And I'm a Penguins fan, so I hate the Caps and I hate Ovechkin. But he's such an eraser, man. He's just a guy that when he's knocked in that first goal last night,
that snapshot off the face-off?
They never looked back. And it's just because the confidence they have in their captain. And that's the luxury you have when you have a Sidney Crosby, when you have an Alexander Ovechkin, when you have a Connor McDavid, guys like that could just be that dude in those moments.
That shot off the face-off where they were running the timer and the puck was in the back of the net 1.6 seconds after the face-off was dropped. That was incredible.
And I thought it was really incredible how the Caps kind of kept their composure, because the Canadians came out guns blazing, trying to get physical at every face-off, and they just never blinked. I thought it was incredible. You know what else was incredible? This entire show, and if you missed any of it, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It's brought to you by Allo Business. Do you have a managed service provider right now? Are they giving you what you need. Do they give you TV solutions? Do they give you cybersecurity? Do they have voice solutions and technology solutions that are modern? If they don't, you need to check out allobusiness.com. Well, you will always get a 24/7 local, that's right here in Omaha, support from allobusiness.com. Check it out and sign up your business tonight. For John Schneider, Dan Campion, I've been Jimmy Allen. Happy National Chocolate Parfait Day, everybody.
Just get ice cream.
Paul Davis.
Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Paul Davis Restoration, and nobody is looking forward to the spring seasonal storms, but you know they are coming. If they haven't already affected you yet, they're more than likely going to do so before the end of the season. And if you're affected by those storms, make sure you work with a company like Paul Davis to restore your home to the way it was before the storm happens. They can help with mold, fire damage, smoke damage, water damage, all of it. They can restore your home to the way it was before any of the tragedy happened. Call 402-553-0373. Work with Paul Davis today.